data science. And I think that's another place where artificial intelligence, in whatever way it's going to be identified or defined, can also flourish. Thank you.
Next question.
Another question. This is addressed to CHED OIC Popoy de Vera. Hello, sir. I'm Mara Cepeda from Rappler. The press release for this program says these are degree programs that are not offered in the Philippines. As CHED OIC, sir, how would you invite Filipino students to apply for this program? Why should they take advantage of this opportunity, and what would it offer them?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm sorry if I'm a little late. I arrived in Davao at 7:30 last night to join the president, meet with the president of Palau, and I was supposed to take the 7 o'clock flight coming back, but it left almost 9 o'clock, so I'm a little late. Anyway. No, the answer is quite simple. That's what transnational education is all about. It is to offer opportunities that are not existing within the country for programs, for degree programs that bring in not only the expertise of Philippine universities, but other universities in the world. The idea is for CHED to play a facilitating role to bring together universities so that they can work on common degree programs that will provide new avenues for learning, new avenues for programs that don't exist locally, so that you enlarge the options for students, not just in the Philippines, but students in the region, international students who might want to go into the program. That's why the role of CHED is critical, because if you just let the universities do it on their own, it takes much longer. Because what's happening in many developing countries like the Philippines is the linkages between universities are really generated by alumni of these universities. For example, Don Camacho, who graduated from a Japanese university, when he comes back, of course, he has professors from the Japanese university, he has batchmates there. So they start thinking about linking. But if it's born by alumni, if it's done by individual universities, it takes forever for this to be scaled up. So the role of government is to make sure that it facilitates it by providing funding so that you bring universities with common interests together and fast-track the process of developing T&E programs. You do it on your own, you fall behind your other competitors in the region. Because all over the region, the governments are investing huge amounts of money in higher education to go into internationalization of programs. So the Philippines has to do it to compete with our institutions in the region, and that's where CHED comes in. So the target of this is not just scholars and students in the country, but in the region and internationally.
So, to the heads of the different institutions, are there scholarship programs being offered? And if yes, what kind of students are you looking for? Maybe a Philippine institution.
I think Chair may also be able to answer them this.
I'd like to answer on behalf of the Commission, of course, because the K-12 transition program, which is actually the unit in charge of this facilitation or assistance, is also providing support for faculty in institutions that are delivering these programs, because one, we wanted to build the capacity of these institutions, and in order to make sure that they're going to be sustainable also in the long run. And with the hopes, of course, that in capacitating these institutions, they would be able to cater to other faculty that are in the Philippines as well, so that the knowledge gets transferred, and then of course we create sort of a multiplier effect in the higher education. And of course the Commission has always been very much supportive in terms of providing access to students. So there will be chances and opportunities for the Commission to provide support for these.
Maybe one last question for me. When will the program start? What school year? And where do the students reach the schools that they are interested in, or do they course it via CHED if they're Filipino students?
Okay, so just to answer your question, the theory degrees are actually targeted to be offered this year in this coming school year, so August or September. So generally, well, if these are regular students, they have to go through the process, obviously, of getting in and enrolling in the universities, getting in accepted with the Philippine universities. That's how they do it. They register and enroll in the Philippine universities, and that's automatically a registration in the UK partner. So generally, that's the guidelines. But the individual universities would have their own mechanics for enrollment, and I think they'll have that actually in the prospectus. They also will have it in their websites. So when it's ready, they will have all this information. I think it's actually, this February is the start of the entire promotion and marketing of the degrees.
Hi, good morning. I'm Ina Hernando from Manila Bulletin. I'd like to know more about the university selection process and the criteria for selecting the universities, both from the UK and from the Philippines.
Okay, so when we started designing the project, we've identified several set of criteria for both the UK and the Philippine side. Actually, CHED has already a policy. They call it policy standard and guidelines on transnational education, and that set out already the parameters of guidelines and on the transnational education operationalization in the Philippines. So for the UK side, that's actually already the entire guidelines has been. They all are up to the standard in terms of the guidance. But for the Philippine university selection, what we did is identify certain criteria. One is that they have to be autonomous universities. They have to have at least level 3 accreditation on programs or disciplines that they are proposing. We also look into their past and current internationalization record, international partnerships. Other ones are they have to propose programs that are of national priorities or the priorities set out by CHED. What else? I think that's it. That's about it. Yes. So we actually have a long list initially, but obviously because I forgot to mention, but you also have to be non-stock and non-profit institution.
With a part of CHED, is there any budget allocation for this specific partnership or program?
Yes, under the K-12 transition program, we allotted 5 million pesos each for these institutions, and then of course there's a counterpart funding as well. 5 million, we provided 5 million pesos to each higher education institution for both. Yes, no, for it's a seed funding that we provided to the school, and the 5 million comes solely from CHED. And then, of course, there's a counterpart funding coming from the school and then the British Council as well.
So my name is David Sadler from Queen Mary University of London, and I can recall the start of this programme a couple of years ago. I think as a UK representative, it's up to me to say thank you to CHED and British Council for facilitating this partnership that are in this room today, because it is remarkable how fast they've grown, and it's remarkable because of the way in which a particular focus has emerged quite quickly, a niche focus has emerged quite quickly. So my recollection of our first encounters 2 years ago, almost exactly, it is very much of a matchmaking process of Philippine universities visiting, exploring, discussing partnerships. Ideas were thrown to the table. Some went forward, some were put to one side for later development. And it is, in my experience, remarkable to have this conversation evolve so quickly over the 2-year period where we are now with these programs all aligned. And that really reflects the strong support for the partnerships from CHED and the British Council.
Hi, good morning again. I would like to ask the Deputy Ambassador if, because there are some scholarships that comes with some agreement that a scholar must serve the country or the government where he was a scholar. So is there any agreement on that? That students will be serving in either government?
I'll talk about the Chevening Scholarship Program that I mentioned in my remarks earlier. So this is the fully funded postgraduate scholarship program run by the British government that we have about 30 scholars a year going from the Philippines. It's a program that is aiming to select future leaders in whatever field. It's a very competitive process. We have a very high number of scholars, and I'm pleased to say that the Filipino students that we have, the Filipino Achieving Scholars, excel in their courses in the UK and are regularly winning awards and demonstrating real academic excellence. So it's a fantastic program. What we ask of those students is that they return to the Philippines after they finish their scholarship. It's very much about the links between the UK and the Philippines. This is why we want to do it, because it's a fantastic way to promote the bilateral relationship and to have people come back and benefit their country, and the country benefiting from the education that they've received in the UK. So that's all we ask. We ask that they come back to the Philippines and they apply what they've learned in this country.
Hello. Just like to make a follow-up. So there are about 10 or more than 10 universities selected. So what criteria, top 3 criteria that did you have, and how many educational institutions applied? Thank you.
Okay, I have responded to the same question, I think. It's on the criteria of the selection of the Philippine universities. I think I've already responded. So, yeah. So, are you talking about the UK side or the Philippine side? As I've mentioned, the Philippine University, we've set criteria with CHED, and I think I've identified them as well. So, autonomous, level 3 accreditation, internationalization record, and the proposed programs, and the priority disciplines as well.
You have 11 partner universities from the Philippines right now. In the future, do you intend to offer the DNE programs to other universities as well?
The Commission on Higher Education, in its last NBAC meeting, I think 2 weeks ago, approved the TNE program of the 10 universities. So we are in the process of looking at the policy and deciding on the next batch. We are committed to continue the partnership on the side of the Philippine government. But we have to look at how the first process was done and learn from that experience to see how we can improve it in the next batch. There are Philippine universities that are already asking why they were not in the first batch. so I suppose because of the success and the speed at which the partnership was developed. Maybe some of the others were reluctant at first. Maybe they didn't believe it would move that fast. But now that it moved so fast, now there's a lot of questions. So we're looking at the process that was done in the first part and subject it to a discussion of the Commission. And in the next batch, we will come up with revised or improved policies. For example, there were questions raised in the Commission about the balance between public and private higher education institutions. As you notice, there are three state universities and colleges and 7 private HEIs. My side on it as a commissioner is that I am happy that there were more private universities involved, because in the Philippines, there has always been questions raised by private HEIs on why government subsidy and support is disproportionately given to state universities and colleges. That has always been an issue that has been raised by a lot of private HEIs, that government seems to be more biased towards the public universities. So in this sense, I'm happy that there were more private universities, because I think the government should really be helping private higher education institutions in the Philippines more, especially now that you have free quality higher education law in the Philippines, and there's a fear in the private higher education sector that this is going to distort the market for hiring of faculty members. This is going to distort enrollment patterns. And there's a real fear that they will be at the losing end of this whole thing. So I have committed, I have told the private HEIs that CHED is fully committed to helping the private higher education sector. And so I'm happy in the first batch. Now, we'll have to discuss in the Commission about what to do with the second batch. Because the state universities are also asking, why are there more private HEIs? So it's something that the Commission will discuss, and at the appropriate time, we will come up with the next batch of universities that we will help.
Sir, in line with the universal access to tertiary education, can you give us an update about its implementation?
Okay, we're going to have the last meeting on February 22 to approve the guidelines of the RA 10931. I know that there is some impatience on the part of many sectors on why this is taking a little longer than usual. My answer is, first, it's a rather complicated law. We've never tried it. No developing country in the region has tried it. And so a lot of the things that we're intending to do, we're starting essentially from scratch. Okay. And so it takes a little bit of effort to craft implementing guidelines on things that we have never done in this country. Okay. For example, the idea of making tuition and miscellaneous free for everyone, setting aside the socialized tuition system that has existed in some universities. I know that there are issues raised by some sectors about this, but that's what the law contains. So now, we've changed the philosophy of higher education, where before, our philosophy was, you pay according to your ability to pay. We've changed that and said, now everyone is free, and then you help the poorer students by giving them government subsidy through TES. That's a new concept in higher ed. We haven't done that. So you need a little bit of time to craft the regulations. You also have the idea of a national student loan program. Difficult to craft that because we don't have a good track record in loan programs in this country. Our study now, pay later became study now, pay never. And the repayment rate is lower than 10%. And so we cannot continue with what we're doing before because it's going to waste public funds. So you've got to work with government financial institutions, you've got to work with private banks, you've got to reconceptualize it. And you can't do that very fast because if we move very fast, the risk is we can waste public money and we don't want to do that. So you've got to balance the need and the desire to move fast with the desire to be very accountable for public funds. So it's taking a little longer, but I've been OIC only for, I think, 3 weeks. And my commitment to the President when I was appointed was, I'll finish the IRR within a month. And that will be done, to finish it before the end of February. So we're looking at some details. For example, we're looking at incorporating a provision in the law for affirmative action programs. We want public higher education institutions to aggressively implement affirmative action programs so the enrollment of disadvantaged sectors and disadvantaged regions will be increased. We have not tried that in this country. And so we're now going to put in place requirements for universities to develop an affirmative action program monitored by the Commission so that we will reach out to LUMAGs, we will reach out to poorer communities and try to increase their access to higher education. That's new again. No? We're going to incorporate a return service system in the program. Again, that's new. Takes some imagination to put it in. But these are minor. So my commitment is that by February 22, we would finish it and have it signed and put it out publicly after that.
Sir, initially for the free tuition that was implemented last year, there were complaints about the monitoring and the compliance of the SUCs. So for this one, for this year's implementation, how are you going to monitor the compliance of the SUCs, and what will be the like penalties if they have should they violate certain provisions of the IRR that you're going to cap?
The problem with implementing the 8.3 billion peso free tuition since last year is not so much compliance of state universities, but their submission of documents. You're seated beside the president of Bicol State University, and I don't know if they comply very fast. So you can ask him whether they comply. So the compliance is the submission of the documents, because we have to make sure that public money subsidizing their tuition is correctly computed, verifiable, etc. The good news is there's less than 10 universities out of 112 that we haven't reimbursed their tuition. The 10 ones are the ones who are, not very compliant, meaning they have missing documents, etc. Our promise is the payment for the second semester reimbursement will be paid before the end of the second semester. So this practice for 1 year will now become the baseline for the bigger law, because the bigger law will now include miscellaneous fees for reimbursing fees. And the database we have developed for the first year will become the database for the bigger law. So it's not, I'm confident that it will not be as bad as some people think. The reimbursement of tuition will be faster. The plan is on the second or maybe the third year of implementation of the law, the funds will directly be given to the state universities. Not anymore reimbursed by the Commission, but it will become part of the General Appropriations Act of the state universities and colleges. So CHED will just be doing the monitoring, the reporting, but the actual use of the funds will now be determined by the respective Board of Regents of the state universities and colleges and the local universities and colleges. Again, maybe just an addition from the last one, we're also trying something new. We're including local government-created universities and colleges under free tuition and miscellaneous. That also has never been done in this country. And the law requires that only those evaluated and accredited by CHED will be included. There's 108 local government-created universities and colleges, and only 24 of them have been institutionally recognized by CHED. So we have a long way to go in looking at their programs, their facilities, etc. I think about 78 of the 108 will qualify starting June. That is the estimate that we have at the rate we are doing the evaluation. So that's an entirely new field because we've never funded local universities and colleges. So it's not so much penalties, but we have to make sure they comply with submission of documents, submission of databases. I don't think there's any interest on the part of universities not to comply because they want to get the money as fast as they can because they're going to use it. So the incentive for them is to get it fast. But CHED has the responsibility of safeguarding public funds. So that is the balance that we have to handle.
A press conference. We have another question from
Okay. May we please hear from some of the universities that were selected in the program, both from UK and the Philippines. What is the impact on your institution, this kind of program?
Good morning. I'm Noli Mascareñas from Deacon's University. Well, this theater program of the British Council and CHED has brought a lot of impact to Deacon's University, especially in terms of quality assurance. Because we have to make sure that the program that we're offering complies with the quality standards of UOL, the University of Liverpool, and at the same time comply with the theater requirements set by CHED. And in so doing, rest assured that we would be able to produce graduates that comply with world standards. And by the way, Deacon's University is going to offer Master of Science in Sustainable Food System in response to climate change and DRR.